George finds a strange book in Grandpa's attic with recipes for bringing toys to life. At night, he secretly reads spells over his beloved toy dinosaur in darkness. Lightning strikes the house and electricity runs through all the rooms at once. The dinosaur twitches and slowly opens its plastic eyes in the eerie darkness. Peppa wakes up from strange sounds and sees the dinosaur's shadow on the wall. The toy starts walking around the house, leaving small footprints on the floor. Mama Pig finds scattered toys and feels a cold wind blowing through the house. Papa Pig hears the patter of small paws on the stairs every single night. The dinosaur grows each day, becoming bigger and stranger than before ever imagined. George tries to control his pet, but it doesn't obey any of his commands. Neighbors notice strange shadows in the pig family's windows during the dark evenings. Grandpa Pig learns about the book and warns about an ancient curse within it. The dinosaur begins influencing other toys, bringing them to life one by one mysteriously. In the nursery, toys move by themselves when nobody is watching them carefully. Peppa finds George's notes about secret experiments with bringing objects to life magically. The family gathers together to find a way to stop the growing magic in-house. The dinosaur becomes a house protector, but its methods frighten everyone around the family. George realizes he must make a choice between magic and his family's safety forever. In the final scene, the dinosaur sacrifices itself to save the family from danger. George hides the book back in the attic, but his eyes glow in darkness. A sunny day illuminated Pig's house, but something was wrong. Peppa and George were playing in their room when they heard a strange sound from the basement. Mummy Pig was making breakfast, unaware of the danger. Daddy Pig was reading his newspaper, but his hands trembled with worry. Strange sounds from the basement became louder and more frightening. Peppa goes down the stairs into the dark basement, where she discovers a secret laboratory. George follows his sister, his eyes wide open with fear. In the laboratory stand strange machines and green liquids glow in flasks. Suddenly, a figure in a red and blue costume appears from the shadows. It's Spider-Man. He looks scared and points to a large black mass in the corner. Peppa and George hide behind a table, watching what's happening. The black mass begins to move and takes the shape of a terrifying creature. Venom slowly rises, his white eyes glowing in the darkness of the laboratory. Spider-Man tries to stop him, but Venom is too strong. Peppa screams in fear, drawing the monster's attention to herself. George hides behind his sister, trembling with horror. Venom approaches the children, his long tongue sticking out of his mouth. Spider-Man rushes to protect Peppa and George from danger. Mummy and Daddy Pig hear the screams and rush to the basement. They freeze in horror when they see what's happening in the laboratory. Spider-Man fights Venom, using his web and agility. The Pig family hides behind laboratory equipment, watching the battle. Venom roars and tries to grab Spider-Man with his tentacles. The laboratory shakes from their fight. Flasks fall and break. Peppa finds a red button on the wall and presses it. A bright light turns on, which blinds and weakens Venom. Spider-Man uses this moment to wrap the monster in web. George helps by throwing his toy dinosaur at Venom. Venom begins to weaken under the influence of bright light and web. Spider-Man ties him tighter, not letting him break free. The Pig family carefully comes out of hiding, still trembling. The laboratory gradually becomes quieter and safer. Spider-Man explains that Venom escaped from another laboratory. He thanks Peppa for helping with the light button. Daddy Pig calls a special service to take the monster away. Mummy Pig hugs the children, calming them after the scary adventure. Special agents arrive and take the tied-up Venom to a safe place. Spider-Man says goodbye to the family and flies away through the window. The laboratory is closed and sealed forever. The Pig family goes upstairs, leaving the nightmare behind. In the evening, the family sits in the living room, still shocked by the day's events. Peppa tells about her bravery in pressing the button. George is proud that he helped defeat the monster with his dinosaur. The parents promise never to keep secrets from the children again.
Peppa lay on the top bunk of her bunk bed, listening to George tossing and turning below. His breathing was erratic, unusually heavy for a sleeping child. She tried to sleep, but the unease grew with every strange rustle from beneath her. Morning brought only more questions. At breakfast, George sat staring at his bowl of porridge, his gaze empty and detached. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig exchanged glances, their smiles gone, replaced by a slight anxiety. Peppa tried to talk to George, but he didn't answer, only shaking his head slightly. At the playground, George sat in the sandbox, his small hands mechanically sifting sand, but his eyes remained lifeless. He didn't respond to Peppa's calls, to her attempts to engage him in play. In the evening, as her parents discussed his strange behavior, George sat in the corner of the room, engrossed in drawing. Peppa came closer and saw that he was sketching strange, repetitive symbols on paper. Circles, triangles, squares. They were perfectly even, almost mechanical. Peppa's anxiety intensified. She tried to show the drawings to her parents, but they were too busy with their own affairs, dismissing her. The next day, Susie Sheep came to play. George sat next to her, but his eyes were empty, and he didn't participate in their games. Susie looked confused and a little scared. Peppa looked at George, and it seemed to her that he was looking directly at her, but without any expression, as if through her. Later, when Peppa tried to talk to Susie about George, she also seemed detached, her gaze as empty as George's. Peppa felt the world around her begin to change. At the playground, she saw that other children, Pedro Pony, Rebecca Rabbit, were also sitting with the same empty, detached stares. It was like a silent epidemic. Peppa walked home, feeling completely alone and frightened. The sky was overcast with grey clouds, and the house seemed alien. Entering the living room, she saw Mummy and Daddy sitting on the couch. They were watching television, but their eyes were as empty as George's and the other children's. Peppa tried to reach out to them, but they didn't respond. Their faces were lifeless masks. Peppa ran to her room. She sat on the floor, surrounded by George's drawings, which now seemed like ominous omens. The room plunged into darkness, and Peppa felt despair engulf her. She fell asleep, but sleep brought no relief. She dreamed of shadows in red suits. The sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George played in their room, where a bunk bed stood against the wall, George below, Peppa above. Mummy Pig cooked in the kitchen, and Daddy Pig read the newspaper in the living room. Everything was as usual, but a slight, barely perceptible tension hung in the air. Suddenly, a strange image flickered on the TV screen. Peppa and George froze, their eyes wide with horror. Something dark, ominous moved through the city. It was looking for something, and that something was very close. Daddy Pig felt uneasy, putting down his newspaper. Mummy Pig froze by the stove, listening. The ominous shadow approached their house. The knock on the door repeated, but now it was louder, more insistent. Peppa and George hid under the bed, trembling with fear. The shadow seeped through the cracks, filling the room. It was looking for them, and they knew it. Their hearts pounded like drums. The shadow approached the bed, its outlines becoming clearer. It was something terrible with sharp claws and burning eyes. It stretched its tentacles towards them. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig rushed to protect their children. They tried to scare away the shadow, but it was too strong. Its tentacles wrapped around them.
The shadow consumed them, leaving only emptiness. Peppa and George were left alone. Their world collapsed. They cried, but their tears were silent. Suddenly, a bright light illuminated the room. A hero appeared in red and blue. He was strong and fearless. He came to save them. The hero fought the shadow, his movements swift and precise. The shadow retreated, its power weakening. Hope returned to the children's hearts. The shadow disappeared, leaving only a cold trail. The hero smiled, his eyes shining with kindness. He saved them, and they were grateful. Peppa and George hugged the hero, their fear gone. They understood that even in the darkest moments, there is hope. It is important to be brave.